Welcome back everyone. In this video I'm going to show you how to do a pulled lamb shoulder in the Weber kettle using the snake method. Alright, now we're going to be using our standard 57cm Weber kettle. We're going to start by taking our lid and cooking grate off, and then you want to get some briquettes and you pretty much just want to lay them down in a domino like fashion. No matter what briquettes I'm using, I'll do a row of 2 down the bottom. And we pretty much want to make this around 3/4 of the length around our charcoal grate. And you really only want to be using briquettes for this. You can't really use lump charcoal as it's all different shapes and sizes. The beauty about briquettes is they're all the same size. Alright, and I reckon that'll do for this snake. This one should get us around 10 to 12 hours burn time. You can make it a little bit longer, but you always want to leave a gap between the two ends where you want to put your lit briquettes to start the snake. And for a full snake, if you did make it a little bit longer, you can absolutely get 10, 12, even 14 hours out of a full snake. And if you're unsure how long to make your snake, always make it a little bit longer than what you think you're going to need. And if you do make it longer and you've got some briquettes left over, you can just shut down your vents, kill the fire, and whatever briquettes are left over, you can use for next time. But for now, we're going to get some briquettes on top. As you can see, I'm doing another row of 2 on top, but if you're using larger briquettes, these ones are actually quite small. You can just do a single row down the middle if you are using larger briquettes. But like I said, these ones are quite small. I've used these ones heaps, and I know a row of 2 on top is going to keep me at a nice stable temperature. Alright, I'm happy with how this snake's looking. Now we need to get some briquettes lit up. Alright, so I'm going to lay 2 firelighters down and light them up. Then I'll get my charcoal chimney on top. Then we're going to get about 10 briquettes in there. And now we've got about 10 minutes before they'll be ready, so we use that time to prepare our lamb shoulder. Alright, so here we have our lamb shoulder. This is a 2.5 kilo bone-in lamb shoulder. And this one really isn't going to need much trimming at all. Just want to trim some of this top fat down to around 3 mil thick. So I'll get my knife here and just skim some of that fat off the top. It's just a little bit of excess fat around here as well. And then there's also a little gland there on this side you want to get rid of as well. In the bottom, it's not really going to matter too much, but we'll get a little bit more off here. You can take this tendon out now if you want, or you can just remove it once it's pulled. We're just going to do it now. And this is looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is just give it a light score on top. This is just going to help that flavour penetrate a little bit more. You don't have to do this, but it does look nice as well. And then we're just going to give the whole thing a light coat in some yellow mustard, which is going to help our rubs stick to the meat. Then you can use any of your favourite rubs or a bit of salt, pepper, garlic, but I'm going to go down with a base coat of my garlic goals rub. And try and get that in those score marks as well. And then we're just going to top that off with my lamb layup. You just want to mop up any of the rub you've spilt on the cutting board. Alright, now that's ready to go once our Weber's up to temperature. Alright, and as you can see, our briquettes are ready now, so we'll take them out and we'll dump them in at the start of the snake. And then you just want to pile them up nicely. Then I'm going to get some smoking wood ready. I'm going with some cherry, but if you've got another favourite smoking wood for lamb, go ahead and use that. I'm going to place one chunk we'll use at the start there to start preheating. And then I'll place another chunk here, which will catch light around an hour into the cook. Then we'll get our lid on, and we want to make sure our top and bottom vents are wide open. And now we'll let our barbecue start to preheat. All right, so for this cook, I want to run the Weber at around 275 Fahrenheit or 135 Celsius. So once I get up to around 225 Fahrenheit or 107 Celsius, I'll get the lamb shoulder on. While we've got the lid open getting that on, it's obviously going to cause our temperature to drop. So we'll let our temperature recover, and then we'll start playing around with some fire management. So we'll cover off all the fire management once we've got this lamb shoulder on. And then I get quite a few comments and questions about the snake method and if it produces dirty smoke due to having all those unlit briquettes in there. And the answer is no. When it's set up right, you won't get any dirty smoke using the snake method, because while this is preheating now, that's going to preheat all of those unlit briquettes to a hot enough temperature that they're going to continue to catch light throughout this cook without producing any dirty smoke. It's much like the minion method when you're using a drum smoker, or if you've got the char ring for the Weber, you're lighting a pile of briquettes in the middle and they're just slowly burning out throughout the rest of that pile. But if you are getting dirty smoke when you're using the snake or minion method, I recommend changing briquettes. The briquettes you are using might have some moisture in them, or they just might be poor quality. A lot of the cheaper briquettes will have a lot of fillers and chemicals in them that'll cause a lot of dirty smoke. But the premium briquettes, like the Olive Pipco ones I use, or B&B charcoal, I've never had an issue with dirty smoke. So I hope that answers a few questions about the snake method, but for now, we're gonna let our barbecue preheat and we'll come back to get this lamb shoulder on. All right, so we're ready to get this lamb on, so we'll try and be as quick as possible. We'll take our lid off, get our bit of smoking wood straight on the start of that snake. We'll get a drip tray down. We'll get our cooking grate back on. Then we want to get our lamb shoulder on about here. And you also want to make sure that your lamb shoulder or whatever you're cooking is never over the burning part of the snake. And then I'm just going to get my wireless thermometer right in the thickest part of our lamb shoulder. And the beauty about this is we'll be able to get an ambient temperature reading from this end as well. And then we want to get our lid back on, and we want to make sure the lid vent is the opposite side to where the snake's burning, so all that smoke and heat can pass through and over our lamb shoulder. All right, so our lamb shoulder's on. We've got some beautiful clean smoke coming out. I've just had a quick tidy up and we're almost back to that 225 Fahrenheit or 107 ambient temperature I spoke about earlier. So in a moment, I'm going to shut that bottom vent down. I'm just going to leave it a crack open. Then we'll give the Weber 10 minutes and we'll see where it stabilizes off at. Now I reckon it's going to stabilize off closer to that 250 Fahrenheit or 120 Celsius, which is absolutely perfect. I always like to stabilize off lower than my target temperature because it's much easier to increase temperature than it is to decrease temperature if it does get away from you. Because all I have to do if I want to increase my temperature is just open that bottom vent up slightly. I'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes and then I'll see where it stabilizes off at. If I need to increase again, then I'll just open it up a little bit more. But if I need to bring my temperatures down, I'll obviously need to close it down a bit. Well, there's a lot of other things you can do to bring your temperature down if it does get away from you. So if you've closed your bottom vent pretty much all the way down and your temperatures are still climbing, you can play with your top vent, but you want to be careful when you do that. You don't want to make too bigger of an adjustment or you might choke your fire, which will also cause dirty smoke. Another thing you can do is use a water pan. That's just going to absorb some heat and take some of that temperature out. So if you've got a drip tray like we do in this cook, you can just fill that with some boiling water. Or if you're still having trouble, you can simply just take some of the burning briquettes out. Usually taking the lit briquettes out is a last resort for me, but it does work. So you're just gonna have to troubleshoot if you do have issues with temperature. So for me, the first hour of this cook is pretty much gonna be all about fire management. And then after that, I'll let the lamb shoulder go for another hour or two before we look to wrap it up. But for now, we're just going to let this smoke away and we'll check back in once we're a bit further into this cook. All right, we've been going for 3 hours now and I've been rotating my lid during this 3 hours just so it's always over the opposite side of the snake. And as you can see, we're sitting at 129 degrees Celsius ambient temperature, 78 degrees Celsius internal, and then I've also set a target for 95 degrees Celsius as well. So let's open this up and have a look. All right, so this has got some awesome color. The rub's set on there nicely. I don't want to mess around with the lid off for too long, so let's get this out and into a tray. Alright, so we'll get our lamb straight in there, and then I've got 500 ml of chicken stock. We're just going to pour over and around this lamb shoulder. And now we're just going to cover our tray in foil. And now we'll get this back in the Weber. Then we'll get our lid back on. And now we'll come back once we've hit an internal temperature of around 95 Celsius or 205 Fahrenheit to check for probe tenderness, which I reckon will take around another 2 hours. All right, now we've hit temperature in this, so let's take our lid off, take our foil off, and we'll have a probe around just to make sure it's all probing nice and soft. Now that is looking incredible. That bone is super soft. I could literally pull that straight out. I reckon this is gonna be ready. Now that's actually closer to 97, 98 in most of it. And this has only been wrapped up for about 2.5 hours, so we're just less than 6 hours into this cook. We've gone through about 3/4 of that snake. So if we built a full snake and we were running our temperatures a little bit lower, we could absolutely get that 12 hours plus out of a snake. I'm just gonna take our wireless thermometer out and then I'll bring our lamb over to the cutting bench. Then we can get our lid back on. And like I mentioned earlier, we can shut both of our vents down now, and whatever briquettes are left over, you can use in your next cook. Now this looks and smells amazing. That is going to be so soft, that bone just wants to slide straight out. But what I want to do now is just let that steam off for 5 minutes. That'll stop the cooking process, and then I'm just going to cover it back up with foil, and I'll let that rest for around an hour before we come back to pull it apart and serve it. All right, and we are now ready to pull this apart. Now look at that. Clean bone. Another clean bone. Right, that's pretty much all the bones. I mean, that is so tender and juicy. Just make sure you go through, sort of pick out any tendons or gristly bits as well. Being a shoulder, there is quite a bit you need to look out for in there. But seriously, that is going to be some beautiful, tasty, tender and juicy meat. And we'll have a taste, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. So much flavour, tender, juicy, that beautiful lamb flavour, everything you want in pulled lamb. Alright, so flatbread, garlic sauce, some of that lamb, lettuce, tomato and some brown onion. That's so tasty. Well, there you have it. There's how to do a pulled lamb shoulder in the Weber kettle using the snake method. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments below. But for now, that's the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.